Football League, but a story off the field here of significance. What do the fans need to know?
Greeny, he's been in rehab in California. His attorney told the California Post yesterday he's been there for a while, since shortly after the Super Bowl. He is expected to be there for a while, and obviously the Rams and Puka Nacua are trying to get him the help that he needs at this point in time. Obviously, there are a whole lot of issues tied to this on the field, off the field. He was involved in a case on New Year's Eve where he was accused of biting a woman. She filed a lawsuit against him. He's trying to get the help that he believes he now needs, and obviously there are huge implications for the football element of this that the Rams are aware of. But they said it's most important right now for Puka to get the help that he needs as a person, and all the football stuff, the contract, that all can wait until after he's out.
Yes, I was going to say that. It feels inconsequential in comparison, but obviously for a football show, it is a big deal. The contract piece of this is going on sort of concurrently, or at least running along parallel tracks.
Look, we saw Jackson Smith and Jigba already become the highest paid wide receiver in football. Puka Nacua is that level of talent, and everybody believes that Puka is going to get paid. But the Rams obviously want him to get the help and treatment he needs first before they move on to the contractual element of this. And when teams are doing contracts, they look at the entire picture. They need that person to be a leader on and off the field. They need him to be an example, and you're going to make him one of the highest paid players in the league. Give him $40+ million, you need to make sure that that person is going to be handling himself the right way.
Okay, so we'll keep an eye on that, obviously. As there's further information, we will let you know. In the meantime, the NFL owners are wrapping up their meetings in Phoenix. And maybe the most interesting thing here was Jerry Jones telling reporters that he has long-term plans in mind for George Pickens, but saying there have not been any negotiations regarding a deal. And I'm going to read you very specifically some of the quotes that he has here when he refers, Jerry Jones says, referring to the franchise tag, quote, that's part of what you sign up for in the NFL. The franchise tag is there for a purpose. It's to benefit the process to go ahead and put your team together. We are availing ourselves of it. So it sounds to me like Jerry Jones is absolutely planning to see George Pickens play this year on that franchise tag.
And if that is the case, I think we're looking at a situation here that has a lot of elements to it that make it a potentially troubling situation. Now, let's start by saying that if the two sides can reach agreement on a long-term deal, all that goes away.
Right.
George Pickens is happy. He's playing there under a long-term deal, and there are no other issues. But as it is right now, he's under the franchise tag. He's not going to sign the franchise tag anytime soon, which means he's not going to be at the offseason program because, number one, he's not allowed to be, and number two, he wouldn't want to be. They have until the middle of July to work out a long-term deal. If they cannot work out that long-term deal, then I would assume we wouldn't see George Pickens for the better part of the summer, maybe until shortly before the start of the season. He's not going to want to miss any paychecks that are well over $1 million a week. So we could expect to see him again shortly before the season, not taking part in the offseason program, maybe missing most of training camp. Now you're exposed to muscle pulls, hamstring strains, whatever it may be. Plus you have a player who's not particularly enthralled with the idea that he didn't get the contract that he wanted, and he's going to be thinking about free agency. There are a whole lot of elements here that make it a troubling, potentially troubling situation for the Cowboys.
So last year was the summer of Micah, and he did show up. He was under contract, the end of his contract at that time. He was there for everything. We saw how badly it all went, and ultimately the trade, George Pickens in a different situation. Here, Tim Hasselbeck, does this sound to you like it could be the difference between the Cowboys being Super Bowl contenders and not?
Oh, of course it does, because with Pickens and CeeDee Lamb, with the way Dak Prescott played a year ago, we saw how good they could be on offense. I think this situation, though, and we're obviously talking about the Cowboys every single offseason, and it seems it's contract related. I've been critical in the past because I think the Cowboys have been, quite frankly, cheap in the past in terms of how they've dealt with some of their star players. This one's totally different for me, and I think some of it, is going to require a little bit of patience on Pickens' perspective. Look, he was shipped out of Pittsburgh because, basically there was some kind of just maturity issues in Pittsburgh, and then he goes and has a career year in Dallas. To think that you're going to become one of the highest paid, players at your position after 1 year in Dallas, I don't don't think is really fair for the Cowboys to kind of agree to that. And so I do think that Pickens, while he may not love the franchise tag, that he's, staring at playing on, some of it is his own doing in Pittsburgh of why he's in that situation. And so in some ways, or in a lot of ways, I side with, kind of Jerry Jones's posture in this situation.
Why do you think, Jared?
Yeah, I think Jerry's got to be careful with that posture. It's delicate. Yes, I agree with Tim. Like, he's in the right. Like, that. This is the reality of playing the position. Like, there is franchise tags. But did you not learn with how the negotiation went with Micah Parsons and sticking to your guns on a handshake deal for you to come out and say, hey, this is what you signed up for? You know what you have in Pickens. You know there's some volatility personality-wise. You want him bought in. But I think the reality is, and maybe this is why Jerry's doing it, he is more of a luxury than a necessity. And I don't mean that to disparage how good of a player he is. But defensively, this Dallas Cowboys team was terrible. That's what's holding them back from taking the next step. So the signings of Quinnen Williams and Kenny Clark and Rashawn Gary, that's going to be the difference maker. That is the priority, that side of the ball. Pickens is great. You want him bought in. You want him there. But the defense is what's going to be a make or break for them. Listen,
this is a tough contract to figure out in my mind because he's due the franchise tag number of $27.3 million right now. Mm-hmm. You've got CD Lamb making an average of $34 million a year. We've seen some of these wide receiver contracts. Jackson Smith and Jigba comes in over 40. Puka's going to want right in that vicinity. These numbers are going up. The Dallas Cowboys are not going to want to pay George Pickens more than CD Lamb. He's going to want as much as he can get. He's on the franchise tag. They're not close to a long-term deal right now. I'm just telling you it's going to be a challenging negotiation for both sides.
Yes, and assuming it doesn't happen, and they have to get something done by the middle of July or that's it, right?
That's it. Then he cannot sign a long-term deal. And how many franchise or transition players have we seen through the years who didn't get the long-term deal that they wanted, who dragged it out to the start of the season, who came in, who suffered a muscle strain, or went through the season disgruntled because they didn't get the long-term deal? I mean, there have been a lot of players that have been through that situation. We've seen that play out many times in the NFL.
That's right. So when Jerry says this is part of the league, is the franchise tag, so is that. That's part of it as well. The disgruntled player on the franchise tag and where it all leads. It doesn't feel like a story that ends well in what otherwise feels like it could be a really...
Commanders. Titans GM Mike Borgonzi was, as all the GMs were, at the annual league meetings this week and was asked about his thought process when it comes to the number 4 overall pick. He said, quote, "It depends on your roster construction too, but where we're at, we are taking the best player available." Never heard that one before.
First, I've heard it since the other 31 GM said it.
Right, yeah.
Too, right? If they do, that's what they should say.
If we take him at his word and they take the best player available at 4, how's this play out?
Well, the best player available on my board, if he makes it there, would be Jeremiah Love because he's number 2, only behind Fernando Mendoza. But, Grass, best player available also must include a thoughtful discussion on positional value, right? And we can look at running backs that have gone in the top 10 recently and how much winning have they truly influenced? I think that's a fair part of the conversation. We can look at some of the recent guys that have gone in the top 10 at running back and how their teams have fared in their first 3 seasons. Look at these running backs taken in the top 10 and their win-loss in the first 3 seasons. The best of them was Christian McCaffrey at 23-25 with the Panthers. Keep in mind, players were moved on from in some of these cases. Ashton Genty, of course, has only played 1 season. Other positions influence winning more than running back. It's been proven to us time and again. The NFL also has a pay scale. Quarterbacks make the most. Number 2 is pass rusher. Not far behind that is wide receiver. So I think positional value is important to be mindful of, and that's why a pass rusher makes a lot of sense to me for the Titans at number 4. Maybe a guy like David Bailey from Texas Tech. Maybe Arvell Reese from Ohio State. Don't worry about the needs right now. Draft the best player at a premium position.
I completely agree with you. I think a lot of people share the sentiment that Jeremiah Love may be the most talented player regardless of position in this draft. But I think when you look at the Tennessee Titans and you understand who the head coach is now, Robert Saleh, you have to ask yourself, how do they like to win? And I think defensively, they want to have guys that can close games out. They need pass rushers. They need somebody that they can pair with Jeffrey Simmons, who had an outstanding season last year. They need a couple guys up front. You have to understand how you want to win. And something tells me that Robert Saleh wants to win with a very dominant defensive line. He's tried to have one wherever he's been. Go back to San Francisco, go to New York. I think there's a lot of clues in the success that he's had. And so for me, I'd be shocked if they took Jeremiah Love at 4.
If they don't, the next pick belongs to the Giants at number 5. And, they were on that list. They were the Saquon Barkley team that didn't work out for them. But things have changed in New York, and their new head coach, John Harbaugh, was, in fact, asked about Jeremiah Love. Here's what he said.
You agree with my assessment that he's a very good player?
Yes, I do. Yes, I'd probably put very, very good player. Put a couple varies in front of that, maybe a couple more. He's really good.
So we know he likes him. Everybody likes him, right? But what do you think about the idea of the Giants taking him at 5?
Okay, so the Giants are picking just one spot behind the Titans. You would think that a lot of what I just said about Tennessee does apply to the G-men. And it does, with one notable difference here. I think Tennessee is honest about where they're at right now as a franchise and how close they are to winning. I think they are trending up, and Cam Ward's growth will play a big role in how quickly they win in Tennessee. I think the Giants are ready to win in their own minds right now. This was a team that felt like the franchise underperformed relative to the talent on the roster. Unlike the Titans, the Giants already have 2 building block edge rushers, right? Brian Burns, one of the NFL's top 5 in sacks last year, plus Abdul Carter, the 3rd pick in the draft. They're probably saying to themselves, given how things went last year for 2 other teams in our division, the Commanders and the Cowboys, and where things are at with the Eagles right now, a more tenuous picking 23rd overall compared to your normal 23rd overall team, they could probably win next year. That's why they hired John Harbaugh, right? A guy who's got a proven track record. So I think Jeremiah Love would make some sense for the Giants. I think he will be one of their considerations. I gave them Sonny Styles in my most recent mock draft. There's a very fine line, though, right there between the 4th and 5th pick that I just described, Boog.
No doubt about it. I think when you're looking at the Giants, just to echo what you're saying, defensively, they have some playmakers up front. I think offensively, they need a couple of more playmakers. You got Malik Neighbors coming back off an ACL. We hope that goes well. I think adding a playmaker, especially with your young quarterback, Jackson Dart, you could convince me that adding Jeremiah Love to take some of the carries off of Jackson Dart, even when he wants to take off running. I also like playmaker on the outside. If you feel like whichever receiver, whether it's Carnell Tate, Mekhi Lemon, it doesn't matter, graded the highest, Phil.
Yeah, my personal stance would be that, hey, I would not be taking a running back in the first 5 selections overall. I just think that with the Giants and the Titans, I think there is a little bit of a different feel about how close they are to competing, and that could influence a running back being more in play at 5 than it is at 4.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to first ask yourself where you are in your program.
Yep.
And the Giants, as you mentioned, the hiring of John Harbaugh, some of the other moves they've made this offseason indicate that they feel like maybe they are that close. I mean, it's a big move. We've seen it work like in Dallas with Ezekiel Elliott at number 4. They had a ready-made offensive line for him and all that. So we will see. We have time on NFL Live today for one more thing, and this is a big deal. The Browns released a new